You ever hear about that one ranch out in Montana? The kind of place folks whisper about like it's haunted. Well, let me tell you about the day Ellie Harper showed up at Jack Callahan's Spreadhawks Hollow. They called it where no woman had set foot for damn near 30 years. Ellie wasn't just any woman. She was a horse whisperer with a reputation that could make a saloon go quiet. And she'd come to see the stallions that had every cowboy in 2 counties spitting dust and cursing their luck. It was a crisp morning, sun barely creeping over the hills, painting the fence posts gold. Ellie stood there at the gate, her boots kicking up little clouds of dirt, her old canvas bag slung over one shoulder. She knew the stories Jack Callahan's rule. Ironclad. No women allowed. Not since some tragedy nobody dared speak of. But Ellie, she didn't care much for rules when horses were involved. Those stallions, they said, were untamable bucking off riders, breaking fences, costing Jack money and pride. She'd ridden 3 days through sagebrush and bad roads to get here, and she wasn't about to turn tail. Out comes Tom Grayson, Jack's foreman, face like weathered leather, eyes squinting like he'd just bitten into a sour apple. He's got a shotgun leaning against the porch. Not subtle about it either. "You lost, ma'am," he calls, voice all gravel and suspicion, like she's some city girl wandered off a train. "This is private land, and we don't take kindly to visitors, especially not." He trails off, but the word hangs there, women. Ellie doesn't flinch. "I'm here about your horses," she says, calm as a still pond. "The ones that threw 4 of your boys last month. Left and bruised, and your corral a mess." Tom's jaw tightened. She ain't used to folks knowing his business, let alone calling it out. See, those horses were more than a problem. They were bleeding Jack's operation dry. Good riders were scarce, and every man laid up meant delays, lost contracts, and whispers in town that Hawks Hollow was slipping. Tom steps closer, still keeping that gate between him. Rules been clear for 30 years. No women cross this line. No exceptions. Ellie just tilts her head, reading him like a book. She sees the worry in his eyes when she mentions the horses. The kind of worry that comes from problems you can't fix. "I get your rule," she says, voice steady. "But those horses are costing you more than just pride. I can help." Tom's about to snap back when Ellie pulls a worn leather notebook from her bag. Pages dog-eared and crammed with sketches horses mid-gallop. Notes on their quirks, their fears. 15 years, she says, flipping it open so he can see. "That's how long I've studied what makes a horse fight back. Ain't met one, yet I couldn't figure out." Tom catches a glimpse of her drawings, precise as a surveyor's map. And for a split second, he's curious. But before he can say anything, Jack Callahan himself steps out of the house, boots thumping on the porch like a judge's gavel. Jack's a tall man, lean, with gray creeping into his dark hair and eyes that carry a weight you can feel across the yard. He's built this place from nothing, turned it into the best horse ranch in Montana. But his posture screams walls he's spent decades keeping up. "Tom, back off," he says, voice low but sharp, like a blade you don't see coming. Tom steps aside, but his hand hovers near that shotgun. Ma'am, Jack says. My foreman told you the policy. Ellie meets his gaze, unflinching. Your policy, not the law, she says. And policies bend when you're losing money. Jack's eyes narrow. Nobody's talked to him like that in years. Not since he shut the world out after whatever happened 30 years back. Most folks just nod and move on, respecting his grief, his boundaries. But Ellie, she's not most folks. Those horses ain't wild, she says, pointing to the corral where you could hear him stomping. Restless. They're hurting physical pain your boys are missing, 'cause they're too busy swinging whips. Jack scoffs, but there's a flicker in his eyes, like she's hit a nerve. You saying my men don't know their job? He asks, voice tight. I'm saying fresh eyes see what old habits don't. Ellie fires back. And if I'm wrong, you've lost nothing but 10 minutes. Now, Jack's caught. Those horses are his biggest headache, costing him thousands, bruising his reputation. He's tried everything, new riders, new gear. Nothing works. And here's this woman, standing at his gate, challenging everything he's built. Before he can answer, two ranch hands, Nate and Cal, slink out of the bunkhouse, drawn by the commotion. They're loyal to Jack, lived by his rules for years, and a woman on the property. That's a threat to their whole way of life. Boss, Nate says, voice sharp. You all right here? Jack feels their eyes on him, expecting him to hold the line. Leaders don't waver. Not after 30 years. But Ellie doesn't back down. She steps closer to the gate, voice cutting through the tension. Jack, when that gray mare in your far corral limps on her right leg, do your men call her stubborn? Or do they check her hoof? And that chestnut stallion, tossing his head left, think he's fighting the bit. Or maybe his teeth are rotting. Nate and Cal exchange looks. She's naming problems they've wrestled with for weeks. Problems they chalked up to bad temper. Jack's staring now. Hard. Because how the hell does she know this? Pain's the same, whether it's horses in Montana or Wyoming. Ellie says, those ain't cries of rebellion you're hearing, theory begging for help. A sharp whinny cuts through the air, like the gray mare's backing her up. Jack's certainty, that iron wall he's clung to, starts to crack. He's thinking about the mare, the way she's been limping, the way his men keep pushing her harder. Ellie pulls a small tool from her Baga hoof pick, gleaming in the sun. Let me check one horse, she says. If I'm wrong, I'm gone, and you'll never hear from me again. But if I'm right, maybe it's time to rethink what your rules are protecting. Nate pipes up. Boss, you can't be serious. This rule's kept us steady for decades. Cal nods. Longer than I've been alive. But Jack's mind is on that mare. He sees her limp, her pain, and something else, a memory of someone who used to talk about horses the way Ellie does. Someone he lost long ago. One horse, he says, voice quiet but final. You check her, with us watching. Tom unlocks the gate, hinges creaking like they're screaming in protest. Ellie steps through. First woman on Hawks Hollow in 30 years. and the air feels different, heavier. They head to the corral, Ellie moving like she was born around horses. Calm, steady. The gray mare's pacing, favoring that right leg, just like Ellie said. Watch how she moves, Ellie says, pointing. She's not fighting Yosha's protecting herself. Jack watches, and for the first time, he sees it, really sees it. Ellie approaches the mare, slow, letting her sniff. No sudden moves. Within minutes, this horse that's thrown every rider is nuzzling her hand. She lifts the mare's hoof, digs with that pick, and pulls out a jagged piece of wire, buried deep. This, she says, holding it up, has been tearing her up every step. The men go quiet. They've been calling this horse wild, unbreakable, when she was just hurting. Tom mutters, "Well, I'll be damned." And even Nate's looking at his boots, ashamed. Jack's staring at Ellie, seeing more than just skill, seeing someone who gets horses like nobody he's known since, well, since Clara. Clara, who taught him to listen to horses, who dreamed of building this ranch with him, until a spooked gelding threw her, and she never got up. That's why the rule exists, not prejudice, but fear, raw and unshakable. Ellie meets his eyes. The chestnut stallion, likely a tooth abscess. That head-tossing ain't attitude, it's pain. Right on cue, the stallion lets out a frustrated cry, head jerking left. Jack feels something shift, something he's buried for decades. "Where'd you learn this?" he asks, voice softer now. Ellie hesitates, then says, "From someone who said horses and people ain't so different, they both hurt in ways they can't always say. Clara Vance taught me." The name hits Jack like a bullet. Clara, his Clara, who'd been mentoring this woman before she died. "She talked about you," Ellie says, quieter now. "Said you were the one who got her, who saw horses the way she did." Jack's hands shake. He spent 30 years blaming himself, thinking Clara died because he let her near dangerous animals. Ellie pulls a small leather pouch from her bag, worn smooth, familiar. "She left this for you," she says. "A letter. Asked me to find you someday." Jack takes it, heart pounding. 30 years of silence, and now Clara's words are in his hands. But before he can open it, hooves thunder in the distance. Nate's back, riding hard from town with 2 local ranchers, faces like storm clouds. "Jack," Nate shouts, words out, "you got a woman here, breaking your own damn rule." The ranchers, Amos and Roy, are big shots around here. Men who've used Jack's rule to keep their own ranches men only. "You do this," Amos growls. "Every wife in the county's gonna think she can play cowboy. You're tearing down what we've built." Jack feels the pressure, the weight of their expectations, the system he's upheld. Ellie steps back, ready to leave. But Jack looks at that pouch, at Clara's handwriting on the folded letter inside. "No," he says, voice steady now. "She's here to fix my horses, and she's staying." It's a line in the sand, a defiance of everything he stood for. The mare nuzzles Ellie, Like she's saying, "You tell him." Jack opens the letter. And though we don't see the words, his face says it all. Clara's telling him to let go, to stop hiding behind fear. The ranchers storm off, muttering about trouble. But Jack's done caring. He looks at Ellie, at the mare, and sees what Clara always saw. Courage isn't about keeping things the same, it's about facing what scares you. Folks, that's the story of how one woman cracked open a 30-year wall. Not just for Jack, but for every rancher who's been hiding behind tradition. What do you think? Did Jack do right, standing up to those old ways? Or is he stirring up trouble that'll haunt him? Drop a comment, share your take, and hit that subscribe button for more stories where courage and truth collide. Out here, change don't come easy, but when it does, it's one hell of a ride.